Okay. Okay, okay. You just twist it in a little bit.
Now you can hear yourself over
Oh,
top.
yeah, I did. That's not good.
No, that's good. You want to be able to hear yourself
Okay.
because that means we can hear ourselves in there.
Okay, hang on. Just now I lost it again. First I
Let's
heard myself and then I didn't.
let's see this real
All
quick
right.
because
Okay.
sometimes you
Okay, let's
pull it a little bit.
see how that sounds. Hmm.
Hold on, I see what's going
Okay.
on.
Aha. It's kind of twisted then, huh? Okay. Let's see if I hear myself now. Yeah, I
Oh
do.
yeah, you can hear
Yeah, I
yourself
do. I hear myself
wonderfully.
now.
Can I see you in here? I can
I
see
don't
you
know.
in here.
Can you
I have
see
a
me in
back. I
there?
have a backup just in case. Here, I got. Oh, I
Okay.
better
I
press.
was wondering why that was there. Yeah.
It's my backup just in
I
case.
was hoping it wasn't like 3D or something like that, that you'd see me from all angles.
No,
Yeah.
it's a just in case backup. And it's probably going
So
to
pretty
die
much we're
anyway.
just going to see from the chest up, huh? Just like
Yeah,
it is?
really, chest
Good.
up.
Good.
It's a
Yeah.
dreary day, which really helps us because we can see the beautiful
Oh,
stained glass, but it's
yeah.
not
Yeah, I
killing our
see
picture.
that. I
I'm
see
loving the
that.
lighting we have today.
Yeah.
It's
Just so the
perfect.
bird isn't going to sit on my head, huh?
Yes, yes.
What?
I love some of our animals
Yeah.
and their faces they
Yeah.
make because none of them are
Yeah.
really all that pleased to be there. Uh, so let's get to
Yes.
talking. We got
Okay.
about this should take about 30 minutes or so.
Okay. All
Uh,
right. Yeah.
so let me just ask, why is generosity important to you?
Oh, wow. Generosity. Well, just the word honestly makes me feel happy. I feel like a person who is generous is typically a person who could be generous in spirit, in their finances, in their giving. And a generous person is someone who is giving. And for me, I feel like it's giving of my heart. And that's why I like to be generous.
What do you think the word generous means?
I think generous can mean I have been in a restaurant before where I had a generous portion of a piece of schnitzel, and I thought that was amazing. Generous means giving of something more, I believe. Something more than just what you can. It's giving above and beyond that.
That's great. What's been your experience with that term generosity?
Oh, um, for me, I think it's giving more of myself. Um, when I was younger and had a family, it was a little more difficult perhaps to give as much financially, give as much of myself to the church. In fact, there was a period of my life I wasn't even attending church. For the last 20 years, and I just realized next year is my 20-year anniversary of being a member at this church. And I found since I retired that it allows me the time to be more generous. So generosity isn't just about, giving of your money. It's about giving of your time.
Hmm. How do you share that with people who are younger than you? Because you said you haven't always been this way. How would you share that with somebody who is younger than you who asked about generosity?
I think I would say to someone, just look for something that makes you feel good, some way that you can give. Maybe it's standing up and being an acolyte, and you've never been an acolyte before. Maybe it's being an usher, whatever, being part of the choir. Just look for something small that you can do. It doesn't have to be big.
Hmm.
Just something, a way in which you can give and contribute. Yeah.
How do you think you're paving the way right now to help others to know? Let me rephrase that question. How do you think you're paving the road with generosity for those who will come after you?
Well, I think that people, by our actions, I think that people see what we do. They might hear about what we are doing as a volunteer, for instance. And so I think it's all about setting and being a model so that others can see that and look for opportunities in which they might be able to or think about what they could do.
Have you ever been the recipient of somebody else's extravagant generosity?
Oh, I think so. I can think of one time in particular. 5 years ago, I had my knee replaced. And it was amazing to me how this handful of friends just immediately came forward. They brought me flowers, they brought me soup, they brought me food, they cleaned my house, they did my laundry. It was just a wonderful act of love that someone cared about me and wanted to help me in that way.
Have you ever been the recipient of a congregation's extravagant generosity or been a part of sharing generosity with the congregation to someone?
Hmm. I honestly will cut that one. I
That's
have
all
to
right.
think about, yeah, yeah.
How does your relationship with God affect how you earn and save money?
Hmm. I'll have to think about that one too. Yeah, seriously. What is that question again? How does my.
How does your relationship with God affect how you earn and how you save money? So, when we think about a Wesleyan understanding of giving, John Wesley, one of
Mm-hmm.
his most famous sermons, I think, was Sermon 50 on giving. Um,
Yeah.
he gave this three phrase sort of understanding of how we give as Methodists, and that is by earning all we can, by saving all we can, and by giving all we can. Um, and so we hear a lot as we go into, I think, stewardship
Mm-hmm.
mode about how important it is to give and how God informs our giving. But as Methodists, two of the other things we're supposed to be thinking about when we're thinking about stewardship and generosity is how we earn our money and how we save our money.
Hmm. Well, again, I guess because I'm retired now and being on a set income, um, I look honestly each year and I look at what I've made a commitment to give through pledging, and then I look at that and say, okay, could I maybe bump this up a little bit for next year? Would I really miss an extra $25 a month or an extra $50 a month? And if the answer is I wouldn't miss it at all, then for me, um, it's about making that little bump up of that money into contributing it to the church. I was just saying to the girls, I really love this church and I love what we do here. And I think that's extremely important for people to not only make a financial contribution, but look at ways that we can encourage people to give of their time, to give of their talents, and of course, giving of their treasure means giving their money.
Well, thank you for that answer.
Hmm.
What motivates you to support the ministries here at Warrenton UMC?
Um, as I said, I've been a member here for 20 years. I didn't, know in the beginning when I first came to this church for the first few years. I didn't feel as much a part of this church when you use the word church family. I didn't feel, honestly, like I belonged to this church family. But over time, the more that I got involved, the more I got to know people a little more. The more I said, sure, I can take over the greeter program. I can, handle communion. The more I did that, the more I became part of the church family because I felt like I began to meet new people, get to learn a little bit more about them, and now I would honestly say this is where I want to be.
So I think we hear something fascinating there. It's sort of that idea that the more you put into something, the more
The
you
more
get out of something.
yes, yes, and it is about giving, but you don't always have to receive something. It's I give because I feel in my heart it's the right thing to do. It's just like with the volunteer transportation. I took two different people today. One was to the doctor's, and the other one was to get her hair cut. And as I was dropping off, the lady that I took for her haircut, she said to me, she uses a walker, and we got out of the car. I helped her out, and she said to me, "Come here, give me a hug." She said, "I miss seeing you." And that just really makes me feel good. So for me, something like that, as you're giving of yourself, you definitely get more back in return, no
Mhm.
doubt.
And a lot of times, that thing you're getting back is a sense of purpose, a sense of thanksgiving for the
It
blessings you
it
have.
brings me joy. It
Yeah.
truly brings me joy. Yes, so I know I'm being a blessing for someone else, and in return, I'm getting that right back tenfold.
hmm How does? Oh, I didn't like that question.
Yeah.
I'm skipping that question with everybody.
Okay.
Uh, where in the world, besides in the church, is there evidence of the ministry of Warrenton UMC? So, where outside these four walls can you see the ministry of our church at work?
I don't know. Honestly, I guess I should know. I should be able to see it, but I would think mostly it's with what we do in the community in terms of, just recently over the past year or so, working with the Warrenton Community Center and partnering with them on some activities. I think that's a huge um, plus for our church in getting the word about the Warrenton United Methodist Church. And of course, going on the mission trips. It's been a long time since I went on one, but I went to New Orleans quite a number of years ago, and that was really an experience. So I think doing missions externally out of our community is a good idea, but what we can do within our community, we need to continue to do that too.
hmm Um, what do you think the Bible says about how we use our money?
Well, I think the Bible tells us to be generous givers. Um, and of course, we're asked to tithe. We are asked to give 10% of our income for tithing. I think that's difficult for many people. So I think that if we can give as much as we can, then that's the best that we can
Mhm.
do at that time.
I think that's a really good segue to another question we have, and that's sort of about what kind of obstacles get in the way when we want to give more.
Oh, I've looked at this myself. I say, like, okay, maybe I can bump this up another $25. Okay, $25 a month doesn't sound like too much, but when you multiply that over a year, then you think, okay, maybe I would need that money for something else. Maybe I better hold on to that. I don't know what my life is going to be in the next 5 years, so maybe I just need to save, save, save. So it's a little bit back to kind of a fear of the unknown, a fear of the unexpected. What if my health takes a tumble and I have extra insurance, that the insurance doesn't cover? So I would guess that for many people, it's all of those things.
That's good. That sort of fear pulls us back a little bit.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we were talking a little bit last night. I was talking with Chris and Gail, and they brought up sort of those bills you accrue when you're younger that you don't think about. Like
Yes.
for 75% of my generation, student loans.
I was just going to,
Uh,
yeah, my oldest daughter is in that situation. She went back to school for a master's degree and she just borrowed all the money. And she said, I know I'm going to be paying this off for a long time, but of course, that was the trade off. I guess the trade off for it. So it's unexpected bills that come in. Maybe your refrigerator goes bad, or maybe your roof, something happens to your roof and it's not covered by insurance. And again, it's those unexpected expenses, I believe, that may be the reason why some people may not want to give more. That's kind of a big obstacle, I think.
Mhm. Mhm. In your life, can you remember a time when you made a commitment to grow in your generosity?
I I suppose it was when came back to the church. I hadn't attended church for a long time. I hadn't been a member anywhere. And when I did come back to the church, and especially when I made the commitment to join the church, um, that's probably when I began to think about, okay, now it's time. Now it's time to make a commitment and make a donation. Yeah.
How does generosity help to shape you into the person you believe God wants you to be?
Oh, wow. You know, Jesus taught us to love one another and to give to others and go out and do good in the world. And I think being a generous person um, will really accomplish that. It's all about, um, like I said, doing the best you can do, being a conscientious giver. But I think it's more doing what I keep calling it a tug on my heart. It's a desire to reach out, even if it's in a little small way. It's kind of like when you see and know of a natural disaster. You start seeing pictures and hear the stories on TV. Many people want to reach out immediately and make a donation to American Red Cross, you know. And wouldn't it be awesome if we had that same kind of feeling all the time when we're asked to give, whether it's financially or of our time?
That would be.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
here's a tough question, I think, especially for people who are used to giving a whole lot and we just know we're going to be giving.
Yeah.
Um, and also, I think it's a tough question for people who don't really give a lot. And this question is, how much planning and praying do you put into your decisions about giving?
Well, maybe you don't want to ask me this question.
I want to
No,
ask everybody this
I
question because when I answer, I'm like,
yeah,
well, I
because
don't really think about that anymore.
you know, that's how much planning. You know, it's at different times in one's life. You think about your bills, you think about your expenses, and then you kind of say, okay, what kind of money is sort of sometimes what's left over for the church? That may be one way of looking at it. Um, I suppose I don't really plan now, being a retiree. I don't really plan that much on how I'm,
So
you know,
when you started
yeah,
looking at
this is a,
retirement, when
yeah.
you started looking at retirement, what did that look like? Because I'm sure when you thought about what you needed, how much you gave to the church was probably in there. Um,
Well, you know, this is funny, Carl, because I'm sure it was in there, but I don't know that I sat down and looked and said, okay, this is my bill for the church.
mhm.
It just sort of evolved after all the other pertinent bills needed to be paid. You know, the mortgage payment, the insurance, you know, those kinds of things. Um, so it just sort of is a number now that I know I can handle. And as I said, it's sort of like looking at how much more can I give based on I don't really need this over here as much anymore. So, and I personally would like you to edit that thing out altogether.
I thought that was great.
No, I didn't like that at all. That was kind of a hard. That
That's a
was a
like I
tough
said, that's a tough
question, you
question for
know,
people who give and
because
for people who don't give.
yeah, very much so. Yeah.
It's funny because you bring
Uh-huh.
up the whole retirement thing, and Barbara
Yeah.
and I were talking earlier, and she said, "Yeah, I love telling telemarketers now I'm on a fixed income." And I said, "Well, isn't it great that it's fixed and not broken?"
Yeah. That's a good response. That really is. It's fixed and not broken. Yeah. Yeah.
But
Y-
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it probably does help when you're retired, or like Katie and I. Now we both are salaried workers.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yes.
And with Katie, it always been like, how do we average how much she makes when she's making hourly wages, or how do we
Yeah.
change every single week? Because it was impossible to do a pledge when we were younger because we were hourly employees, and we always tried to tithe, and so it would change every month, and you would see it. We'd end up giving
Oh my
$163.47,
gosh. Oh my gosh.
or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that would every month. And typically, it's funny because you do counting, right?
No.
Okay.
No.
A lot of
Uh-uh.
times, if you do counting at a church, you can tell who's tithing or who's giving proportionally based on their salary by,
Uh,
especially if it's like 0.64 or something at the end.
I see what you
If they
mean.
don't
Yeah.
round up,
Yeah.
they're giving exactly
Yeah.
10%. You say,
Yeah.
oh, I know that person, what they're doing.
Yeah. Really, I guess at some point in time, honestly, I just sat down and I said I really didn't figure it as a bill, but I guess I must have because I knew. Now, you have to know this about me. I'm not an exact person. When Dwayne was sitting in there saying he needed to find 19 cents, I would never in a million years spend any time finding 19 cents. When I balanced my checkbook, it was sort of like looking at the statement, looking at my checkbook and said, oh, that looks close enough. And I'd just draw a big line across there because I always knew that I would have money in the bank. So it was sort of like when I finally sat down and looked at this, I said, okay, this is mortgage, this is insurance, this is typically average groceries, average gas. And I just kind of said, here seems like a good number that I can start with, at the
Mhm.
church. And did I pray hard about it? No, I don't think I really did, to be honest with you. It's just like, Lord, I think I can do this.
One thing I'm finding fascinating,
Uh huh.
one thing I'm finding fascinating when I talk to people about
Yeah.
giving and how we plan on giving
Hmm.
is this phrase keeps coming up, whatever's left ends up going to the church. What is your thought on that phrase, whatever's left goes to the church, as compared to give to God first, or whatever's left goes to the church? Is there a difference in those?
Well,
I'm throwing hard-hitting
yeah,
questions at you. I'm going to throw an easy
yeah,
one after that.
yeah. Well, I mean, if we sit here and on Sunday mornings and we listen to what's being said, I mean, that's exactly what we're taught to do. That's what the Bible teaches us to do: give to God first, um, and then you kind of make do, with everything else, as opposed to here's what's left and let me give that to the church. I guess that just doesn't really solidify your planning very much, does it?
Well,
Yeah.
I feel like
Y-
maybe it's a matter of faith for some people. Just for me, it's a matter of trust. Um,
Yeah.
and I can tell you, there's been times where I have not done it very well. I've said we're going to have to get
Yeah.
God next week and catch up.
Well,
And that's something I feel terribly guilty about
but
when we do that.
you're a young family. You have children. Um, I listened to you talk about after when you moved into that sermon about moving into your house and now finding all these things. I mean,
People think it was more than it actually was. It's really not that much. It's just regular
but it
day to
was.
day things.
It did sound like a
I think
little. Yeah.
people think I've moved into a shanty. Really, our house is
Oh,
great.
geez. That's good. That's good. Oh, jeez. Yeah. But I feel that we go through we go through our stages in life. We go, of course, our seasons of our lives, and as a young mother, and being married, we rarely went to church. And when we did, yes, you always take out something and put it in the donation plate. And, it was the funniest thing. I remember when I finally started giving online. And of course, I know that's why we had made those little cards I gave online. It's probably not as, I imagine there's probably not that many you see in the offering plate nowadays. But it was very difficult to touch that offering plate and pass it on without putting something in it. But I love the ease of being able to give being able to give online.
That was a
So,
big stigma because at
yeah,
my last churches, I was
yeah.
the one who had to institute online giving
Oh,
because it was a
wow.
small church.
Yes.
They'd never had online giving before I was there, and
Yes.
so I put it online giving in there. And for a lot of people, it was like, And still, for a lot of people, the only way they would use online giving is if they knew they were going to be out of town.
Oh,
They would
yeah,
still give at
yeah,
church, and they would give
yeah.
online.
Oh, well,
They would give online if they weren't in church, but if they were in church, they were putting something in the plate. It was fascinating.
oh, yeah, interesting. Yes.
So, do your beliefs about God shape your giving, and if so, how?
Do my beliefs about God shape my giving? Uh, well, yes. I mean, it definitely does. If I didn't believe in God, then I'm not sure I would even, well, I may not be in this church, obviously. I may not want to do good for others, in the community or in the world. So, yes, that's the ultimate, that's the right answer because it's what we're taught and it's how I feel.
Hmm. How does living generously help you to see the world through God's eyes?
Well, I think he must be pretty proud of many of us. Um, I totally lost my train of thought on
Maybe
that
not how
question.
God sees
What was
us
that
when
question
not how
again? Yeah,
God sees us
yeah.
when we give, but how we begin to see like God when we give.
How do we begin to see like God when we give? I feel like I'm kind of repeating myself over and over with some of my responses.
You're okay.
So maybe I
Like I
won't.
said, there's going to be lots of
Yeah.
editing magic.
Yeah. Okay, then ask me something else.
All right, that's
Because
okay.
I don't know how to answer sort of any differently for some of
Hmm.
these
Can you think
questions,
of a time where it ever felt like you were giving sacrificially, like it might have been a little bit scary to give?
Yeah, I think probably in the time frame that I was separated, and at that time I decided I wanted to come back to church. So I attended a few churches around the community, and finally, ended up here. But I was still, even though I had a good job, I was still a little hesitant about what can I give and how much should I give. So I gave. It wasn't a regular commitment, but that's probably kind of that biggest period of time of fear, a little bit of fear that I was going through. So I
I think that's great.
don't think it is.
How did God take care of you?
Well, I'll tell you, a couple different times I felt the pastor was really speaking directly to me. So I know that God was speaking through that pastor because that message was just what I needed to hear. And there were a few times I sat here and I just couldn't stop the tears from running down my face. So I knew that I was at the right place.
Great. We're going to let her walk on by real quick and then we're going to start
Okay.
talking again. We've only got a couple more questions left. You're doing so
See,
great.
I didn't think we were. I thought you were just going to pull some questions out of there. I didn't know we were going to kind of work through
I
the
haven't pulled
list.
all of them. I haven't
Yeah,
pulled
I
all of
remember
them.
there was a few on there about talking with your family about finances and things. Yeah, I don't have
And
a
we sort of
family,
hit that
so
when I asked you
a
how
little
you'd talk
bit.
to somebody who was a little younger
Yeah, yeah, that's
about
true.
it.
Yeah,
I've been,
you're good. You're getting good
eh,
experience working with people, huh?
eh, one of these days I'll be good.
Yeah.
Um, so you hit on this a little bit earlier. Actually, let me ask you this one
Okay.
question first. How do you think our church could be more generous?
I I think it's hard to for a church to sort of make a mark in the community. And I think that we have our community engagement team, and we're with our NLI plan, and we're continuing to look at ways that we can make an impact in the community. And I think that's important to keep doing that. I mentioned, the relationship with the Warrenton Community Center. I know that last year a small group of people did the Thanksgiving meals, and we've already talked about doing that again. Things like participating in the Warrenton Christmas Parade. That's a pretty easy, small thing to do. So I think that we just need to, as a church, continue to look at ways in which we can be actively engaged in the community. Um, there's a program that happens I think it's the third Saturday of October, and there are three churches in town that work together, and it's called Inasmuch. And they identify various projects for people in their homes that maybe you have a team going in and cleaning up someone's yard. Maybe you have a team going and preparing meals. I think that I would really like to see our church be one of those churches that join those three churches so that every year in the middle of October that it's anticipated that we can anticipate that's a great way to help somebody. I know several people myself that would love to have individuals come and do yard work for them that can't get outside, that can't do so maybe they need some help doing spring cleanup or fall cleanup. So that's just one little example.
Great. So, last question, and then you'll get the final word after that. How do you celebrate the good you're able to do through generosity?
Oh, it's mostly, honestly, just feeling the joy. It's just feeling the joy. I mentioned about the driving program that I've been doing for the last, I don't know, 11 years. I've met so many wonderful people. And for somebody to give you a hug, to say thank you, to just know that I've done something to help someone else in a very small way, but in an important way. Like I said, it just makes me feel happy.
Great. Do you have any? We'll let them go by real quick.
Okay.
So, sort of, I guess, two parts. If you were able to tell somebody why they should make generosity a more important part of their lives, what would you tell them?
I would say you have to look at ways in which you can, ways that you can take that little tug on your heart and make it make a difference.
Great. Um, and then what would you like to say? Sort of final thoughts that you have. You've been talking for about half an hour now. What final thoughts do you have on this?
Well, as I said in the beginning, even when I think about the word generosity, it just evokes a feeling of happiness in me, and I think that each of us can find whatever it is in our lives, in our church family, in our world, to do something that really helps someone else. And I would like to see more individuals in our church be willing to kind of step forward and be involved and find something here that they can contribute to. So you don't always have to be able to give financially, even if you can give $5 or $10. And maybe extravagant giving is adding that extra $5 a week to what you are giving. Or maybe extravagant giving is um, participating and not just coming to church and enjoying the word and getting the spirit of God, but looking at how that spirit kind of propels you forward to get involved.
That's awesome. You're done. You did great.
Oh, wow.
You did great.
That was hard. Okay, so, if you only show like 2 seconds of me, I'm fine with that.
Your feelings won't be hurt.
No, it won't be hurt at all.